This is an open letter to President Biden. Hello, sir. How are you? Hope everything is good. Just, I will just take a few minutes of your time, sir. Hopefully. Here's the thing, sir. Uh, what happens when there is a dispute of because of overlapping interests in a domestic arena? In a domestic sense, within the borders of a country or within a tribe or a family. When there are overlapping interests, claims of interest, there are claims of overlapping interest. In a domestic setting, what happens is the two sides, hopefully it's a law-abiding society, the two sides take their problem, their overlapping interests, claims of interest, to the court, to a third party, impartial. And the idea is that impartial party, who's a judge, would, determine where does the interest of one ends and the interest of the other begins. The border. That impartial judge, who's actually called a judge, his sole job is to determine where the interest of one ends and the interest of the other begin. Where the interest of one ends and the interest of the other begins. That's the whole spiel of a judge. I know where the dividing line is, literally, of interests. That's the sole job of a judge. So you understand this as a human society, Mr. Biden. As a human society, you have understood this much. So within your domestic borders, you do hire some judges and say, okay, you sit on this chair and we hold you in high regards, but make sure you're impartial and you draw the line fairly, so both parties get no, get the correct amount of interest on any disputed property or rights. So you have understood this as a society within a domestic sense, but how come you are not understanding this in a sense of international dimension? In the international arena, you have not come to recognize courts and an impartial judge or judges would be, a correct way to go about settling, disputes. Settling disputes over the limit of interest. This is a simple idea that you have been practicing it for thousands of years in your domestic arena whenever it was orderly, but you still in the 21st century, after your last Lord and Savior, you have gone, you still don't want to recognize that, yes, the same system of impartial judges to determine the limit of each party's interest is a good enough system that we can actually apply it internationally as well. You haven't done that. You have gone just as far as nationally, okay, domestically, in a national sense, we have court system, this and that. And then you go a step farther and you say, and also our domestic courts can rule on international matters. I'm sorry, your domestic judges were picked by your domestic politicians. You can't have your own courts issue judgments on international matters. That's why international courts are there. But you say no. In fact, Mr. Pompeo literally threatened the international courts when the international court wanted to look into a case with regards to abuses in the Middle East, in West Asia, abuses that have taken place during the past 20, 30, 40 years. And Mr. Pompeo actually threatened the judge and said, Get the fuck out of here. Literally like a gangster. Get the fuck out of here. If you come after us, we come after you. Literally gangster style. Mr. Pompeo told the judges to back off. But then at the same time, your domestic courts issue judgments on very international matters. Do you understand that Uganda also has domestic courts? Can Uganda's courts also issue, you know, international judgments? Then, if that's the case, all the African courts, they can, by tomorrow morning, they're going to have each one of them at least 1,000 open cases against the European colonialists. Every court in Africa would be piles of claims against the Europeans, from their, theft and larceny to murder and rape. Fuck. Salute, sir. Here's the thing, Mr. Biden. International partners of you on earth have not had any input into picking of your domestic judges. So your domestic judges are basically very one-sided judges, because they haven't been voted or elected or selected from the other places than your own domestic national borders. So my point is this, sir. I mean, if when you ask any politician in the West, London, Paris, New York, Washington, you ask any of these folks that, why were you on that side of the world kicking ass, and they say, as has been said often, that we were protecting our interests. We went over there and kicked their ass, or provided weapons to our allies so our ally can kick their ass to protect their interests, our interests. We both have the same interest, with regards to Ukraine and Uncle Sam's managers, and with regards to Israel and Uncle Sam and managers. Apparently you folks have common interest, and you're helping each other to protect that common interest. Sometimes you go into Iraq and Afghanistan and Syria, and sometimes Israel goes into Lebanon and Libya and Syria and whatever, and Gaza and this. And so obviously you folks have the same interest over there. NATO plus one or two or three. So my point is this, that if you have interests overseas, outside of if you have a claim as a nation, as an organization, as a tribe, if the tribe of the Pinkskins in North Atlantic Pinkskins have a claim on a piece of land, or have a claim for an ally on a piece of land on the other side of the planet, maybe that claim should go to court. You go to court, they go to court. The judges of international courts are try to be impartial, very well watched, so they would stay impartial, and they would judge, and literally you go by the majority rule. The same way you're doing your domestic business that is run very well has worked for 200 and some odd years. My point is this: you in the domestic sense, you understand that the limit of each party's interest should be determined in the court of law, but you don't recognize that in the international sense. And if you do, you say, no, our law, our judges. As I said, Uganda also has judges. They can pull orders out of their ass as well. Rulings. They can pull up rulings out of their ass too. But let's be frank. Apparently it's the enforcement arm that that is important. That is important to have, not the ruling, because Uganda can make as much ruling as they want to, but because they don't have the enforcement arm, so we are back at the caveman time. If you have a bigger club, you can enforce your rules on other people. Well, that's why you have so many wars. Afghanistan should have gone to, court, international court, to dispute with Afghanistan. Hey, Afghanistan has this, this, and this in their country. That they're making trouble. Okay, let's go to court. Have the terrorists also send some representative to court. So what the fuck are you talking about? What is your problem, Mr. Terrorist? I have never seen anybody in court, and hey, we have a claim against this group. This is the guy. Hey, guy, let's go to court, international court. Why did you attack us? Nope, nothing happened. It's like, no, 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 no. We have a media, they will tell you what happened and who did it, but you don't want to hear the guy. And the fucking British, forgive my language, sir, the British started this business from, during the television time, they started this business by voice-overing the Gerry Adams, the leader of political wing of Sinn Féin. His voice was voice-overed by some British actor, although he was talking English. Whenever he gave an interview during their negotiations with the British, he would be speaking in English to the reporters, but BBC would do a voiceover. Somebody else, we don't want to even hear his voice. If we have to look at his ugly face, that's enough. We don't want to hear his voice. Do you see how bad this can get? That even those who, don't get blown up by a stray bullet, even those who you keep alive, still, we don't want to hear of them. This is a British thing. So here's the thing, sir. To prevent all kinds of war that is happening right now, why not go to the courts? Go to the courts and have the judges determine. But the problem is, when you have too many wars, sir, that means somebody is claiming a lot of interests that are disputed. When you go to, somewhere, when you have so many wars, so many places, that means obviously your interests and their interests are overlapping, whichever side that is. Is it China? Is it Russia? Is it Middle East? Is it Africa? Is it Latin America? This is Central America. Wherever your problem is, you're at war or close to war, or you have allies who are at war, allies who you have overlapping interests with. That's what makes an ally. Your ally is somebody or sub entity that you have an overlapping interest with. That's an ally. It's all about interest. None of it is about principle. And this is what I'm saying. Court is where principles come to play. Battlefield is where interests come to play. Sir, and every time you're going back to, okay, let's see who has the better arms. Let's go fight it out. And by fighting, at the end of the fighting, the limit of each one of our interests is determined at the end of fighting. Because we are sure we got better weapons, we are sure we're going to win, and we are sure our interests are going to push your interests out. We are going to dominate. Okay, maybe you can dominate, maybe you can't, maybe we all go to war, nuclear war, and we become extinct. But the point is this: it can be avoided if your idea is not that, okay, if we have an overlapping interest with some natives over there, we're going to go fight them. But if your first intent, your first thought is, okay, let's go to court, let's see what the court says, and we abide by the court. And just make sure that those judges in international courts of all kinds that you can have, criminal, international criminal court, other courts for other disputes, you can run this kind of international court system, and everybody just make sure the judges are impartial. If you want to avoid any kind of wars, if that's the purpose. But I guess if on the other hand, if these are all planned and you want to go to war, then I have nothing else to add. I mean, it's the case that there was a video, and it wasn't disputed, on one of these social medias came up. There was a video of a young Senator Biden, and the video wasn't disputed, so I'm assuming it's real, it's not fake. That at one point, you, sir, were saying, you were explaining to somebody on video, on camera, you were explaining to somebody, and it wasn't clear who you were explaining it to. But you were explaining to somebody that if we expand NATO eastward in the Baltics, we are inviting a conflict with Russia. You were explaining it, which is not, it's very, simple. You push and they push. They will push back, because you're both paranoid and you both think, your overlapping interests shall be fought in the battlefield. No, go to court. That's the only way you can avoid your third world and nuclear war. That's the only way. Everybody agreed that an impartial judicial system for international matters is the best way to deal with this issue. Not who has bigger arms. And of course you have bigger arms, and you can continue as you have, as a nation, as an alliance. Let's not kid around. Everyone in NATO was present in Iraq, and everyone in NATO that was present in Afghanistan, and everybody in NATO was, even if they sent 2 medics, some of these Baltic states would send 2 medics, and the point is, this is a alliance to show their allegiance to the alliance. If there was any dispute with Iraq, you should have gone to international court. No, sanctions. Let's make the people suffer. Why? You have overlapping interests. Go to an international court, and then in that case you have to accept the international court. But it seems Uncle Sam's managers that would both parties have never ever accepted or want to accept or are likely to accept, wanting to accept any kind of international court system. Why not? You have as a species, at this point in your history, you have recognized domestically, you have recognized that you don't encourage your citizens to go arm themselves to defend their interests. No, you encourage your citizens to go to court to defend their interests. If there is overlapping interest, you don't encourage your citizens to start shooting at each other. If they do, that's a bad thing. But you, as a governance, you don't encourage your to defend the borders of their interests by weapons. If they have overlapping interests with others, you don't you don't advertise it and you don't encourage it because you want peace and security, peace and prosperity, stability in the society. Well, it's the same in the international arena. If you want stability, peace, and prosperity, you have to settle the extent of your interests in court, in the court system, international. And the first step to that is to recognize the authority of the international court. Even if that means you have to monitor their judges 24/7 to make sure they are impartial. Just that's the right way to go about this.